My guest is Sandy Herlick. Welcome to the show, Sandy.
Thank you.
Now, you're very active in the Jewish community. What role do you think the media plays and our show plays in the Jewish community?
Well, I think that the media today finds every reason to portray Israel in a negative light. And every day there's a new negative image being put forth about Israel. And I think Israel in the Jewish world is our opportunity to showcase all the positive elements, incredible innovations and accomplishments of Israel. And I think that's a really important thing for the community to know about.
But do you think we're not a propaganda show? We're sometimes critical of Israel.
Yes, you are critical of Israel, but what happens on this show is it presents Israel as a normal country. I think that one of the comments I get very frequently when I visit Israel, which I do regularly, is, "Weren't you afraid?" And that really upsets me, because what that means to me is that most people see Israel as a country that's just full of war and terror attacks. And I want people to know that Israelis go to the beach with their children and sit in cafes and go to restaurants and live a normal life. And I want them to know that within Israel, there's disagreements about lots of things that go on, whether they're religious or political. And I think that Israel and the Jewish world communicates that. It communicates that Israel is a normal place.
It's a crazy place.
It's a crazy place, but
exciting place. But it's quite right. When you're there, you don't notice. It's really part of the far background, the violence or anything like that.
I find more often than not, if something happens while I'm there, my family or friends in Toronto know about it, and I don't have a clue.
The real danger is automobile accidents.
That's true. That's very true.
But what about in the Jewish community here? Because we also represent this community in some sense. And we don't only tell stories about the Jewish community. We tell about Druzim, we tell about other kinds of, we talked about Vietnamese, Israeli. So we cover a little broader aspect.
But again, that's showing the diversity of Israel as a country. And the Jewish community in Toronto, which is not homogeneous whatsoever. It's very different, it's diverse, lots of different opinions, people doing all sorts of different and interesting things in many different areas of the community. And I think that's one of the things that's beautiful about the show, is it shows that diversity.
If you were summing up the theme of this show, well, how would you sum it up?
The theme of this show, I would say showcasing the diversity of Israel.
With that, we're going to end, and I want to thank you very much, Sandy, for coming on the show. I should have you as a guest and interview it for a long period. Thanks again.
Thank you.
My guest is Martin Maxwell, and unlike anybody else, I can't summarize your life in a single category. So we'll just discuss your life.
Okay, right.
Let's go back to the pre-war period. You're brought up in Vienna, right. And what's your first encounter with the Nazi machine?
We moved into a new apartment building, my parents. It was built by the socialists out in the suburbs. Most of the Jews lived in the 2nd district. We moved into the 10th district, beautiful new apartments. It was a family standing there waiting for us. And the young boy, my age, 7, said to me, "Are you going to be our new neighbor? Aren't you Jews?" He said, "Funny, you don't look like Jews." I didn't know how to answer him. How do Jews look? You know, I didn't have payers or anything. So he said, "You play soccer?" I said, "Yeah, come on, you can play in my team." So he introduced me. My friend is a Jew, but he's my friend. So don't start any troubles. We had a wonderful summer until we went to school in September.
This is what year?
1930. Austria is a Catholic country, so the priests come in and teach religion. And I, as the only Jew in the 2 classes, had to walk out in the corridor. When I came back, they all yelled at me, "You're a murderer, you killed Jesus." I said, "Who the hell is Jesus? I never heard of him." So little Ricky, he was smaller than I, went up to the big bully. He said, "You know what, you're big, but you're stupid." He says, "My friend is only 7 years old. The priest told us it happened in 1930. We got into a big fight. We got home, I had a black eye, he had a swollen lip. His father worked on the railway, but he was also an amateur boxer. He says, "Hey kids, you want to defend yourself, you have to learn how to box," and we did.
He taught you how to box?
Yeah, and you know what? After a few days, they left us alone. So that was my first encounter that people told me I killed their God. I almost wanted to say, if that's your God, how is it you let me kill him? But it was, of course, not a good answer.
But then there's the Anschluss, and you
Well,
have...
what happened? My parents died. My father died very early of cancer, and my mother died a few months later of pneumonia. You couldn't cure pneumonia. So what happened? All of us went to the orphanages. I went to a very religious orphanage, and my brother to the yeshiva, and my 3 sisters went to an orphanage for girls. And then Germany invaded Austria, and they told us all Jewish institutions, including the orphanages, had to close. And I was called into the school, and very nice vice principal closed the door, and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, this is your last day at school. I says, why? I'm on the soccer team, I'm in the choir, I am the best in geography because I collected stamps. I knew everything. He says, I have no choice. He says, all Jewish teachers have been expelled and you have to leave the school. I said, it's only a few weeks before my graduation. He says, I can't help it. I asked the principal whether I could give you your certificate. He called me a Jew lover. So that's why I never graduated. So when I told this story at York last November during Holocaust Week, a week later, the principal called me and says, we would like to give you an honorary graduation certificate from York School. And it was an unbelievable event. Every newspaper was there and every TV station. What a great, wonderful school. Now he sent me an email asking me what subjects I'm going to take at university. So here we are. And yeah, to go further, you said what happened after that. My brother and all the students at the yeshiva and all the rabbis were arrested and sent to a concentration camp. But the 3rd day there, an SS officer took a boot, a dirty, filthy boot, and threw it at my brother and said, hey, little Jew, when I come back in 2 hours, I want this boot to look like new. And he must have done a good job, because he said, from now on, you don't have to go back in the camp, you look after me, you make coffee, my belt and my boots. 3 months later, he called him in the office and said, I've been promoted to Obersturmbannführer, being sent to Berlin. Here's a little paper that says, we have investigated this man's case. He's not an enemy of the state, and any help you can give him would be appreciated. Signed, Obersturmbannführer, the SS. And he said, you're free to go.
Wow,
so
that was
at the
really lucky.
same time, the orphanage closed, and we went to Vienna. And a nice lady gave us a room who knew our mother, and then, of course, we had Crystal Night. Yeah. How can I describe Crystal Night? Tens of thousands of us were driven through the streets. And I looked at this old man next to me. He was the local doctor. He said, you're spitting on him, you're kicking on him. This is the same old man you called when your parents were sick, when your children were sick. Didn't help. We went into a big hall, thousands and thousands. We come in front of an SS man. He said, where are your parents? He said, they're dead. So he lifted his left hand and said, go out that way, where everybody else was going out. Then my brother pulled out a piece of paper, and he showed it to him. And he said, yes, I know him. He's a good man, this Obersturmbannführer. Go out that way.
Oh, and that's how you got away?
We got concerned because nobody else went out that way except one more group, or 2 more people. So we went out, and my brother used the old Austrian saying, Grüß Gott. And the Hitler youth yelled, we have no God in Vienna. Hitler is our God. But we made it home. We found out the next day all these other people were deported to the Polish border or sent to concentration camps. So that little piece of paper, who knows? You go to the left, you die, to the right, you live. Who knows these things?
Yeah, well, I watched the Primo Levi
thing last night,
and of course, the selection is a very big thing, and the luck and the chance.
It's unbelievable. A little piece of paper. Now, what happened the next day? I thought the whole world knew this. Hitler said to the world, I can do what I want. I can kill the Jews, the gypsies, the homosexuals. Nobody gives a damn. Nobody wants the Jews. But there was somebody who cared. There were the Quakers in England. With the help of Rabbi Schoenfeld and a little help from Churchill, they persuaded the British government to let in 10,000 Jewish children, called the Kindertransport. So my brother and I, because we were orphans, were asked whether we want to go, which we did. But my brother had a big decision to make, what to do with my 3 sisters, because their orphanage also had to close. So he went there and they said, we have a small place in Paris that are willing to take them, a small orphanage. He figured it's the safest place in the world. So he signed the papers and off they went.
I see. And you guys went to Britain.
Yeah, we went to
That's
Britain.
another piece of chance.
Well, the chance was that it was Christmas, so we were in a big school. And many people came to sort of look at us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people thought they'd adopt a young, beautiful little girl of 6 or 5. Incidentally, 90% of those in the Kindertransport never saw their parents again. One day a woman came home and she said, I'm so proud of myself. I placed 3 children today. What does it mean? She found a home. So her son, who was 14, a little older than I, said, Mother, that's wonderful. Why don't we take somebody? And I was that lucky person. A lovely Jewish family who loved music and literature. The first book they gave me to read was Oliver Twist, because of the orphanage.
Yes, right.
And I loved Dickens. Anyhow, they sent me to school, and I still remember the principal, the first day I was there, said, we have a young Jewish refugee here from Vienna. I want you all to be nice to him. He's had enough trouble in his life. So that's the first part of that story.
Martin, we'll continue with your war stories, but we're going to take a break first.
Okay.